The next federal election was top of mind today as MPs return to the House of Commons. Parties are already in campaign mode, selling their agendas and stepping up their partisan attacks. So 8 months out, who's got the edge? The CBC's polls analyst, Eric Grenier, joins me now with the answer to that question. Eric, who has the edge?
Well, right now it is the Liberals, but it's not a very big edge. So we can look at those numbers. These are the poll averages we have in the poll tracker. The Liberals are at 36.8%. The Conservatives are at 35.1%. The NDP at 15.2%. The Greens at about 7%. The Bloc at 3.5%. And the People's Party at 1.4%. So what that represents from the last election, that is a drop of about 3 points for the Liberals and a gain of about 3 for the Conservatives, and the New Democrats down from the 20% they had in the last election. So there has been some movement since 2015, but you're still seeing a pretty tight race between the two parties, which is interesting considering the context of the Liberals being a first-term majority government who in almost every case, going back to the Great Depression, that was the last time it happened, where they didn't secure another re-election. So to see a close race in this context is pretty interesting. It sets us up for a pretty, I would say, divided and partisan 2019.
Oh, surprise, surprise. So when we break it down regionally and when you're trying to figure out what that percentage actually means when it comes to votes and seats, what are you seeing? Well,
when you would have a gap of 2-3 points between the two main parties, you would expect that the seat breakdown would be pretty close, but it wouldn't be right now. Right now, with these kinds of numbers, you'd expect the Liberals to be somewhere close to the 170 seat mark of what's required for majority government, and that's because of Quebec, because we're still seeing that while we have seen some movement in some of the other provinces, in Quebec, the Liberals still hold a very wide lead over the Conservatives, over 20 points, and that is enough to really deliver anywhere from 60 to 65 seats. So you add the 25 to 30 seats that the Liberals would win in Atlantic Canada, and before they even get to Ontario, the party's approaching 100 seats. So that's why they're in a strong position right now, because while the Conservatives have made a few gains in Quebec, they've certainly closed the gap in Ontario. It's neck and neck there. You're still seeing that the Liberals have that advantage in Quebec, and that is right now putting them in the driver's seat going into this election year.
Where are they vulnerable regionally when you're looking? Like, where's their biggest vulnerability?
Well, their biggest vulnerability, well, in terms of where their numbers are weakest, you would look to the west, right, to the Alberta.
They don't have a lot to lose.
But they don't have a lot to lose. Where they would be more concerned would be in Ontario, because they won Ontario by pretty significant margin in 2015. But right now you're seeing that really the two parties are neck and neck. So if the two parties are neck and neck, that means that you're looking anywhere of 20, 30 seats that the Liberals would have that would be vulnerable to being lost to the Conservatives in the GTA. That's where Quebec comes in. If they can pick up 20, 30 seats in Quebec, it can balance that out. But Ontario would be their main concern right now. So that, for them, if they can get those numbers back up, then they'd be in a better position. But then Quebec, always volatile. Are they going to be able to hold that edge they currently have in the polls?
Looks like we'll be looking at Ontario and Quebec a lot,
oh, yeah.
Among many other places. But you also did a really interesting piece, given the first day of QP today, what we did witness already, some heckling, it happens. You looked at the speaker's sort of name and shame policy, or, you know, not formal policy, but the way he's conducted himself, and whether or not it had impacted the amount of heckling taking place. And what did you find?
Well, anecdotally, I don't think it has. We saw that he named 2 other MPs, at least 2 others, when I was watching today. So he's on track to continue those numbers. So since the Parliament began, he's now called out 80 individual MPs over 300 times. So that's a lot. That's almost once per sitting day, and he's not even there every day. So we've seen that in the first year, he called out about 50 MPs, or he called out 50 different times, different MPs. That doubled in 2017 and went up to 163 in 2018. So Jeff Regan has taken this step to try to name individual MPs, to try to call out the heckling, which is something that previous speakers did not do very often. He's doing it more often. You could say that maybe that means heckling's getting worse, or he's just trying harder. But it doesn't seem to have had much of an impact so far.
And Conservatives, you looked at who are the biggest offenders, and Conservatives might feel a bit targeted by him too.
Which they have said on a number of occasions and have challenged Jeff Regan when he has called them out. They are the ones that are being called out the most. They've been called out about 84% of the time when Jeff Regan has done that. Now, there could be a lot of factors. He is a Liberal, so he might not be, maybe he's predisposed somehow. The New Democrats are all the way in the back corner, so maybe he can't hear them as much. But it has been the Conservatives the most often, and the ones that have been singled out the most, a few Western Canadian MPs, Ed Fast, Kevin Sorensen, Michael Cooper, Blake Richards, and Aaron O'Toole as well. So those are the ones that Jeff Regan has picked on the most. We don't know if they deserve it or not, but certainly they are the ones that have gotten the tongue lashing the most from Jeff Regan.
All right, thank you, Eric. The CBC's Eric Grenier.